Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Brandon LaRocque. I'll be moderating our session today. We're going to talk about cybersecurity and cloud. And with me here today, I have Aaron Lieberman. He heads up the security practice at Conres. Aaron, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about what you and your team do at Conres.
Sure. So again, my name is Aaron Lieberman. I'm one of the chief technologists here for Continental Resources. I am the practice manager and lead and have responsibility for 20 dedicated engineers who cover networking and security. I'm a Cisco CCIE. I've been in the industry since the 90s. And I've been with Continental Resources, now known as Conres, for approximately 15 years.
Excellent. Excellent. What are we talking about today?
So today we're going to cover cybersecurity driving trends, the landscape and approaches of cybersecurity, and ultimately protecting the cloud. It's a hot topic these days. And, we're going to set the table with a number of topics around cybersecurity, and we'll end up transitioning into topics around cybersecurity and protecting the cloud. Okay?
Excellent.
Sound good?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so just to touch on some of the trends that we're seeing these days, no surprise, any cloud first is the hot topic around hybrid multi-cloud solutions. Along with that, IT consumption models are also changing, right? SaaS, infrastructure as a service, right? As a service, software-defined networking means a lot of things to different folks. SDN, SD-WAN, software-defined access. I recently heard software-defined branch as a new one. And with the explosion of cloud, has come 5G as well, which has kind of prompted higher speed bandwidth over your LTE links, and having access to these applications that we're consuming all over in all of these different cloud environments. Programmability and automation is going hand in hand with all of the above. And then finally, managed services is another key trend that we're seeing out there. Okay.
So it would seem, Aaron, that like almost all of these trends are pushing security beyond our traditional four walls infrastructure. So we've got networks of all different types and clouds of all different types. So what do you mean by sort of like that any cloud, connected any cloud item?
That's right. So, for us, it's, we're embracing all cloud environments, right? Hence the term any cloud. Okay. So what does that exactly mean? Well, if you look to the left, right, a legacy approach is, looking at things in a more siloed fashion, right? We've done this for many years. Private cloud, looking at solutions and services, all around, your four walls, like you mentioned. Now we're looking at public cloud, right? It's been around for a while now. And how do we, position solutions and services within the public cloud? And then now hybrid, a mix of marrying both private and public cloud together. And then you have your clients, campus, branch, and mobile users. And traditionally, it's looking at things from a very siloed solution set, right? Solving problems, right? Separately within each one of those silos. And that, creates a lot of gaps. So today, it's a more modern approach and looking at it as we think more forward and looking at things as a single platform across all of your environments, all of your clouds, all of your on-prem, all of your campus branches and mobile users, and stitching it all together as a single framework, across any data center, any campus, any branch, any SaaS application that you're consuming, and then more importantly, any public cloud that you might be, within today. Okay. And that hence the word cloud. Yes.
And with that legacy approach, I would imagine that applies to both IT operations and also how the teams are structured, how they're managed, how the technology is purchased and managed for the entire life cycle. And Is that what you guys are trying to knit together into sort of a one approach, one platform?
That's correct, right. And for us, when we're engaging with our customers, we're often talking about all of the above. Very seldom are we just discussing a campus solution. We're very more often than not now, we're not just discussing a data center, right? An on-prem data center. We're discussing a solution that encompasses all of these functional areas of the IT landscape. Okay?
So that must drive some security concerns. Let's get into maybe a little bit about what's involved on the
Absolutely.
security side.
Yeah. So, you wouldn't have a security presentation without some stats, right? So every new company is hit with ransomware, or any attack for that matter, every 40 seconds. Okay, this is coming from Kaspersky, and out of those hits every 40 seconds, 68% of those compromises go undiscovered for months. So often they lie dormant, unknown to the IT folks, the business, and that raises a big problem. And
I
when
mean,
there
that's
is a
real.
breach,
That's really telling to the massive
yeah,
size of the
yeah,
issue.
yeah, that's right. And when there is a breach or a compromise of any sort, it can cost anywhere, on an average of $4 million. So that's huge.
Yeah, the stakes just are enormous.
That's right. Yep. So with that said, what organizations are worried about today are, how do they stop threats at the edge? Like, how do we stop them from coming into our environment in the first place? Okay. Because, if we don't have to deal with a lot of different things, if we can stop it immediately before it's, it's infiltrated our organization, right? And how do we protect those users where they work? Meaning, it's not just those four walls. It's, we can create these boundaries and these perimeter security to protect our infrastructure. But when those users leave, okay, how do we protect our mobile workforce wherever they happen to be? All right. So that's a concern, right? And then assuming you're allowing those users into your network, right? I mean, what type of user are they, right? How do you actually control who gets into your network from an identity standpoint? Okay. And then again, once they're in that network, how do you differentiate between an employee, a type of employee, and a guest user? Okay. Somebody who's a guest and is visiting you here for a meeting, a vendor, right? So how do you provide segmentation across the network? Okay. And then how do you contain those problems fast so that when you've allowed somebody onto your network, right, you've allowed access to the network, you've segmented them where you want them to be, and there is a problem, right? It's a malicious user, or they may not even know they have something that is running on their system that, is unauthorized. So how do we contain that problem, right? And then finally, how does this all relate to the cloud? Well, yeah, we're going to get into discussing how do we actually secure the clouds themselves, but we still can't forget about some of these other areas of security that allow our users to be able to access those cloud environments in the first place. So we're going to touch on all of that as well.
Aaron, it's starting to become clear why your group is not the security group. You're the networking and security group. I mean, it seems like all this interconnected IT infrastructure is really kind of driving a completely new security paradigm.
Yep, that's correct. So,
Oh, and here we go. Yeah, here we go. Well, let's talk about it.
sure. So with the cybersecurity protection landscape, there's your services and your solutions. So if we discuss services, it really starts with advisory services, okay? And the advisory services, that could be anything from assessments, incident response planning, penetration tests, all sorts of things, right? And we'll get into that a little bit more. You have managed services, okay? Having another entity or a third party help you manage all of this security problems, right? And all of the threats that are out there, all of the solutions that you have to put in place to provide good protection for your business. And then the integration, right? How do you integrate all of these solutions together? So if we want to dive into some of these solutions, I'm not going to cover every one of these because we could talk for quite a while on each one of these, but I'm going to highlight some of the things. The cloud we'll get to, of course, but from an endpoint standpoint, endpoint is really addressing that mobile workforce, that mobile user, okay? It's anything from your traditional antivirus, okay? Intrusion prevention, application whitelisting, hardening, patching, all of those things that we need to address on the actual endpoint. And it's morphed now into malware protection, DNS protection, and more monitoring and visibility these days. So it used to be more about signature-based, antivirus types of solutions, but now it's much more. We're putting a lot more emphasis as far as security goes into the endpoint itself, okay? Especially where these users are very mobile. Well, network security, that has been around for quite a while. Your traditional next-gen firewalls, denial of service attack solutions, IDS, IPS, securing your network, right? But where things have headed nowadays is embedding more security and visibility and analytics into the network itself, okay? So on-the-wire type of security, meaning why have it go to the perimeter security firewall, right, or internal firewall? Why send your traffic there to be filtered or to be protected, okay, or to be segmented off from other parts of the network? What are some things that we could do on the network itself, at the wire where the desktop is or the client is connected to, both wired and wirelessly, okay?
Yep.
So we're seeing a big push for, SD WAN, SD access, and a lot of that is opening the way for more network segmentation within a business, okay? And that offers much more visibility into what's happening, okay?
The message I'm kind of hearing from you here, Aaron, is I don't think anyone is under the illusion that perimeter security by itself is a solution anymore, and that's been the case for a while. But just the complexity and the reach of security into almost every element of your IT
Right.
sort of infrastructure seems to be pretty present here. I mean, is that kind of the point?
Yeah, that's right. And what often goes overlooked, especially for smaller organizations, and this is my next topic on the solution list, is threat intelligence.
Okay.
Having a good SIM. A lot of customers feel like having a good SIM means I have to have, a big staff. I have to have a lot of cumbersome solutions in place that require a lot of manipulating of the data and the policies and just overseeing it, 24/7, and that's not the case anymore. So there's a lot of solutions out there that can provide you a SIM, security incident event management solution, that can, truly correlate all your data, bring back all your logging, and help you take actions against this, against the data that a lot of your solutions today can communicate back to a SIM. So that's huge. Again, it's often overlooked. Again, use the SIM in conjunction with solutions that help with user behavior analytics. So it's not just like taking in logs anymore. It's okay, what are these clients doing? What's happening between them and the applications? What's happening with them and each other, right? That, what's not normal now, right? We've normalized all this data, but how do we now see, how the behavior has changed and to provide data so that we can help better protect our business? So that's a big thing. Another area is identity management and access. It's so easy to steal accounts. It's amazing, in today's age that, user accounts, whether it may be email or domain access, accounts get stolen all the time. And how do we provide better two-factor authentication solutions, multi-factor solutions that can help better protect us against, regular authentication and identity access that we do today. So that's a big one. And then finally, incident response. Incident response solutions are really something that you want to take very serious. There's a lot of programs and vendors out there that you can work with, including us, to help provide an incident response solution, guidance, project management around an incident response, and all the things that go into it. There's also vendors that have they'll offer cyber kind of like war games, right, for you to attend and be part of a real incident, right? And I definitely encourage customers to take advantage of those type of things, because you can bring your company to these events, and you can learn a lot about where you are as far as your preparedness to be able to handle an incident of some sort.
And that one, let me pause there for a second, because I think I was reading recently a case study from Conres, and obviously the company was unnamed, but it was talking about, we talked earlier about how incidents can cost $4 million. In this case, it looked like the company didn't have any of the network security, didn't have any of the data and app security, and was relying largely on endpoint, and they had a breach, and it looked like it bricked almost all of their users for about a month, and they were losing billions of dollars. So, and that was something you guys jumped on from an incident response perspective and kind of got the company back up and running. And I mean, from the way I read it, more or less saved their business in just from the incident response perspective.
That's right. Yeah, that was quite an incident. And yeah, we came in, we provided incident response. We had an army of highly skilled security and networking engineers to help provide incident response, come up with a strategy to get the business back up and running. And ultimately, we improved their overall network security posture in the end. So to prevent another situation that could arise. And I think in the end, I think everybody learned quite a bit about it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that was, it had a lot to do with, endpoint, network, segmentation, putting, identity management, putting all those solutions in place, which would, which may have prevented it in the first place for sure.
Right. You only want to lose a few $1 billion once, right?
That's right. That's right. And they're in a much better place now.
So Aaron, so you've got the services section on the side, and I know you guys do all that kind of stuff, but even whether they're working with a partner or not, these things seem to be relevant for an in-house team or for you. So let's dive in a little bit about how you view the services from the Conres perspective, and then what that means for, people working on these kinds of problems.
Yeah. So we touched already on the preparedness planning, right? Those things are all, that would focus primarily around assessments, whether it be cloud, networking, backup assessments, pen tests, social engineering. We do a lot of training, right, for our customers as far as social engineering and audit compliance support, right, for our customers. Best practices around architecture and design are some of the others, especially with cloud. That's an area where where a lot of folks and IT professionals are having issues as far as like we're moving to the cloud, and how do we ensure that we're having the best architecture and design and following best practices from AWS and Azure and Google. So that's an important area. And I mentioned already, we talked about the incident response, the planning, and attending a cyber range attack simulation, which we can certainly offer. I myself have attended quite a few of those, and you learn a lot, and they're great events to attend, and they really help customers kind of jumpstart themselves into preparing for an incident. So yeah, so all those those advisory services are super important. But I think in the end, one thing that I think gets forgotten is backups, right? That's everyone takes that for granted that they have good backups, but when you need them and you don't have them, it's a disaster, right? And then the last thing that I think is really important is establishing in advance who are you going to call, okay? And because I've seen this where customers, they have an incident and they spend 24, 48 hours trying to figure out who to call. And you've already wasted time, lost millions of dollars just not doing anything and just sitting in a room trying to determine who's the right vendor to call, who do we bring in, what type of services do we need. So having that in place ahead of time is really important. Okay.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep, and then around integration services, it's really it means end-to-end protection solutions across hybrid and multi-cloud. So it's not just putting something in place or having a strategy that only fits your branch office or only fits your hybrid, your on-prem data center, but something that can work across all of your environments, okay? As well as, making sure that those solutions and services are optimized and tuned, which brings me to my next topic around optimization and tuning, which is, again, often goes overlooked. And this kind of brings, the best way to illustrate this is to kind of talk about a cybersecurity threat life cycle. And I'd break this down into two things, pre-incident and post-incident. So pre-incident is all the things we've already talked about so far, is assessment, preparation, and prevention. Of course, no one wants to get attacked. They don't want to have an incident. So these are all those services we already talked about to help you so you don't have an incident of any sort. But if you do, you detect it, you provide an analysis on that threat or that alert, right? Or that event, and then how do you contain and remove it very fast? So this is the post-incident response. But where it dovetails into what I was mentioning about the optimization and tuning is the recovery and post-incident activity. It's feeding everything that you learned about that threat that got through, right? Something got through. You weren't able to do enough preparation, right, during the pre-incident phase. It got through, you analyzed it as a threat, you contained it, but now how do we take that and feed it back into the original step one, the first part of the process? How do we feed that information, tune our systems, improve them so that we can now improve the whole process and the life cycle of our security posture? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And when we're looking at this as you've coined it as the threat life cycle, but I assume this is also the way Conres approaches helping clients with their security infrastructure and their cloud.
That's right. Yep. So with that said, on cloud, there's a misunderstanding. There's certainly some confusion out there. I would like to break it down into two main areas, from the cloud and for the cloud. So from the cloud, that would be security solutions offered as SaaS, okay? So I'm using Cisco Umbrella, Stealth Watch Cloud by Cisco, or Palo Alto Global Protect, Meraki Security Solutions. They just name a few, right? These are all solutions that I'm consuming from the cloud, okay? I'm not really speaking about protecting anything at this point. I'm just speaking of we're consuming these solutions as they're offered as a SaaS-based security solution.
Gotcha. So they're delivered in a cloud model, basically?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
And then security to protect cloud SaaS applications is another thing this is where it gets confusing. Is it a solution that is being delivered, or is it something that we're actually trying to protect? So the next thing is security to protect those cloud SaaS applications. For instance, Office 365, okay, Salesforce, Dropbox, to name a few. Okay, what are the solutions that we can put into place, right, to make sure that we're protecting those applications that we're consuming from the cloud? And then for the cloud, that's the big one. That is security for the public cloud. That's broken down into two areas, right? Native. So it's everything that AWS, Azure, and GCP can offer natively within their own platform. Okay. And then what are the third-party security solutions that can complement what we're doing with those native solutions? Okay, like Palo Alto, Cisco, Viptela, SD-WAN, StealthWatch, VMware, NSX, ACI Anywhere. These are all things that are offered as third-party complementary solutions to what a customer can already do with a native cloud security solution.
So is this mostly informational for our audience today, or does your practice see that this confusion or this misunderstanding about the different segments actually is at the cause of some of the things the clients are seeing?
Yeah. It's often hard to have discussions with customers on cloud because you have to understand what context they're coming from, right? Are we trying to offer more security solutions offered as SaaS, or are we trying to protect our SaaS applications as we're adopting them more, right? Or are we trying to address our public cloud initiatives, right? So you have to kind of break it down before you can understand what those, what to recommend for a customer. You really got to understand what we're talking about and what the scope is.
So this is more about what they're actually trying to accomplish and
That's
understanding
right.
that and making sure they understand that.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
So, how Conrad secures this cloud? It's, we're protecting SaaS applications. We're protecting, as we mentioned, right? We're protecting the public cloud environments, securing access to the clouds, we mentioned, and then providing those advisory services around that, whether it be through, assessments, best practice services, and whatnot. And we're going to drill into this a little deeper, okay? So as we do drill into it deeper, some of those use cases, right, for securing the cloud is, implementing effective internet security. Okay? So that's, that means staying safe anytime, anywhere, right? We're trying to protect ourselves from malicious internet destinations. Okay, it's sort of the same thing we're doing today on-prem, on an on-prem data center or in our campus offices. You're implementing a lot of the same concepts, but you're implementing them in the cloud. Okay?
Well, and especially because it's cloud, we talked about earlier, it pushes things beyond your four walls, kind of that old
Yep.
on-prem um, uh, paradigm. It's almost like there's like it just multiplies the threat vectors that you have to deal with now because you've got this kind of network, you've got these remote users, you have this traffic in and out of your environment, but also within your environment. It just seems like it just multiplies the size of the problem.
It it does. It's a big problem, and that's why going back to what we were saying earlier, is you need to look at it as a complete, comprehensive solution, right? Building, one policy that can, that can spread across all of your different environments. Okay, DDoS mitigation techniques and solutions, perimeter security. It's all the same. These are things that you need to implement in any environment. Okay, and they do happen to have, most of the vendors out there, the good news is they have solution offerings that can be positioned not just in AWS or Azure or Google. They can be positioned in your on-prem environment as well. So you can have that single cohesive solution with a single pane of glass.
And
Okay.
thus we're back to that any cloud approach that you guys are taking.
That's right. And then I'm kind of picking on Office 365 here in my next use case, but protecting email solutions is really important. It's, protecting against phishing and ransomware. Business email compromise is huge. It happens every day. So it's, it's very easy for someone just to open up an email and click on a link, and the attacker has access to too much. So that's where we get into good solid endpoint protection, because assuming that something got through, your endpoints are now protected through endpoint protection. Things like DNS security, OpenDNS, Cisco Umbrella, allows us to safeguard ourselves against those type of threats that are coming in through email. And then, just email itself, protecting the email, the Office 365 environment is, you're looking at, CASB and, identity access management solutions, right? Solutions that can offer multi-factor authentication to prevent, again, back to what we were saying about unauthorized access, someone stealing accounts. It happens all the time. So having, safeguards in place around identity and access management and, it is really important to do. Okay. So it's not just securing Office 365. You also have to, it goes hand in hand with also securing that endpoint, right? So
Just one facet of the many endpoint protection things that you
yeah,
need to cover. Yeah.
yep, that's right. Safeguarding your SaaS applications and then shadow IT. Okay. So that is visibility and control. We need more visibility and control to enable us to continue to adopt cloud. Okay.
Okay.
It's a lot easier to adopt cloud when you feel like you have more visibility, or you have some level of visibility and control of what's happening in your environment. Okay. As applications are being pushed out into the cloud, okay, whether it be public cloud or SaaS applications, you really again want to have that good foundation for identity and access management, right? So that how those users are accessing those applications, right? How are they authenticating into them? Who is authenticating into them? Where are they coming from, right? You might have a user log into Office 365, and they logged in from Massachusetts, and 30 seconds later, that same user logged in from China, okay, for instance. So that's a problem, right? So what kind of things can we put in place to be able to notify us when there's a problem, or even better, prevent it from happening in the first place and block that additional access? Okay.
Aaron, do you have any favorite, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have any sort of favorite examples of any of these things that you've worked on with clients where kind of, I don't know, just a real world example of where it was either a lack of knowledge or a lack of awareness or lack of visibility that sort of turned into a solution with you guys that helped a client?
Yeah, we see all the time clients unauthorized. Well, there's unauthorized access to the email based on user credentials being stolen, or they were stolen because there was malware on malware on the system that was able to intercept the authentication process. They get their hands on the user login info, and they're able to now embed themselves on the client's workstation as long as they want, and they can read email, they can respond to emails, they can intercept all that, all of the the information, the thread, right, between a client and the business, and they can do a lot of damage. But what helps with that is training, social engineering, right? It's really important to we can put all these systems in place, but without good training and social engineering, protection, it's going to continue to happen.
Technology and good practice go hand in hand then.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then public cloud visibility, detection, and remediation is really important. Also, it's detecting those threats to give us greater insight and visibility into what's happening, especially for compliance. It's as customers are moving to the cloud, you need to maintain the same compliance that you had, whether it be HIPAA or PCI. That doesn't go away. it actually becomes more important because you lose a little bit of control. So you have to make sure that you're maintaining your security posture for that compliance in, across different environments. Okay.
So is that an approach that you guys take where, I mean, obviously, most businesses, the sky is not falling. So their IT infrastructure at least serves the business. But hey, now we want to take care of, we want to take advantage of all of these, the elasticity, the scalability, all these great features of the cloud, but we don't know how to reinstitute what we have today in the cloud. Is that a common sort of situation
Yeah,
you guys?
very, very common. And that brings me to my next point about what you just said, elastic network protection across these environments. You know, it as customers have compliance today, they have to maintain certain levels of network segmentation, for instance, okay, within their campus or data center. What we hear from customers often is, I need to do the same thing, but I need to have that operate and work very similar in a cloud environment. Okay, so that means I need to have some sort of segmentation strategy, to across all of my cloud networks. So how do I do that? Well, and how do I do that without having to have different solutions everywhere? Well, there are a lot of solutions out there, anything from software-defined networking, next-gen firewalls, SD-WAN especially, that can give you a single pane of glass and a single policy where I can stretch my network boundary to all of these different environments across hybrid and multi-cloud, and I can maintain that segmentation and that network or security policy across. SD-WAN especially, it's one of the hottest things for us right now. It's not just stitching the networks together, but it's within SD-WAN, we can now provide segmentation of network zones or zoning or segments, or however you want to phrase it. Every customer has those same challenges, and with SD-WAN, we can actually stretch that across, and we can do it through that single pane of glass through one policy or as many policies as we need, and we can rinse and repeat that process because it scales very easily. So yeah, SD-WAN is been a really big topic for us these days. And then two more: protect your data and workloads and applications. Right? It's you can either do it through encryption, segmentation, okay, or other visibility services, okay? And this is something that a lot of customers take for granted that they do today on-prem. For instance, I'll get a three-tier application, web app database, okay? Well, I can physically go into a data center and I can actually create boundaries with switches and routers, okay? When you get into a cloud environment, it's really hard to have that web app database segmentation virtually without putting the right policies and solutions in place, okay? So what we get asked a lot from customers is, how do we maintain that type of security, right, for my workloads and applications that I do today on-prem? And we can do that through tools or solutions like ACI, VMware NSX. That can all live inside a public cloud now. Okay, it's not just for on-prem. It just doesn't operate on physical switches and routers anymore. Same thing with firewalls and those other solutions that go into the traditional network. All of that can help protect your workloads and applications and provide much more visibility that they had in the past, end
So
to end.
you can sort of recreate the protections you have in that physical world, but it's a completely new discipline to do it in the virtual
That's
world, in the cloud world,
that's
and that's
right.
something you
That's
guys.
right.
Okay.
And what's, here at Conres, we've been doing this a really long time, and, we have, experts who have been, all of these things. We've been doing them on-prem for years, and we've evolved, so we can handle these challenges now in any environment. Okay.
Okay.
And then finally, event-driven security is gaining a lot of traction. So what event-driven security is, and it's really about listening to those events and alerts and providing automation around it. Okay. You might do it for a compliance reason. You might do it for security standards that are part of your organization, or there might be for CIS controls. But it's the crux of it is taking those events and alerts and again providing that automation, okay, of how do I handle those events and what type of actions do I take? Okay, for instance, like with AWS, it's taking advantage of things, CloudTrail, CloudWatch, SNS, taking those tools that are native within AWS, putting them together in a best practice manner and actually getting them working, right? So that you can now provide action, more intelligence on those alerts and those threats. And you can even do auto remediation, okay? Like for instance, I'll give you an example is being alerted automatically through an event, right, that an account, right, didn't have the right MFA, right, set up, or the privilege level for that user was incorrect, right, or they went beyond what they should have been able to do, okay? Another great example is looking for inconsistent changes in the infrastructure. So with AWS, for instance, or any of these cloud environments, it's really easy to build your infrastructure, okay? But how do I get alerted to when changes have been made, right, and then take action, okay? With ease, there's risk, right? So, and that's what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of credentials being compromised. We're seeing things being turned up in the environment that should not have been turned up, right? Things are changing really quickly. So how do we make sure that we're alerted to those changes? We see those events, and when those events happen, how do we actually automate either notifying that something happened or actually trying to remediate or prevent it from happening, right, and put a blocker in place?
So almost kind of gives you the ability as these environments scale, like you said they do, like
Yep.
you give them enough information and enough responsiveness to still deal with it, even though it's extending outside their four walls, it's growing bigger, it's getting more complicated all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you warned us at the beginning that the landscape was large, there's a lot of different facets, and obviously you've even just with the number of solutions you've mentioned offhand in the session today, there's no way we could do a webinar about how every solution works. So let's talk about what you have on screen now is what should you look for in someone that can help you navigate that massive landscape of hundreds and hundreds of solutions.
Yep. And yep, that's us. It's, making sure that, you're working with a vendor that is treating cloud as a top priority, whether it be cloud first or whether it be a hybrid or multi-cloud strategy. Working with a vendor like us that we know, like I said earlier, we know the risk. We've been in business for a long time. We've continued to evolve. I said earlier, we have, highly skilled and talented engineers. We've often become trusted advisors for customers. The customers I've been working with for the 15 years that I've been at Conres, and it's a testament. It's a testament to how the value that we've been able to bring to our customers. Okay, for those years, and it's a true partnership. And then finally, we provide a practical approach to securing infrastructure as well as cloud. We're not just compliance-based checklist type approach. We're truly looking to make a difference and make a change, and improve the security posture. And then finally, embrace DevOps and that automation culture, because as you saw earlier, there's a lot of things that could be put into place that could really help to improve the overall security posture, both on-prem and cloud, and to help address threats and issues much faster. So that's it.
Excellent. Well, Aaron, it's obvious the landscape is vast. You've covered that today. Sounds like there's a lot of solutions, both from an advisory and planning perspective and a technology perspective, that you guys could bring to bear. For anyone on the call, this has been a great overview, and you've kind of given us a great idea of the breadth of this area. If anyone would like to talk to Aaron's team about something that's going on in your organization, I know they have a lot of those advisory services, a lot of the consultative services that can help you design those solutions. Please reach out to Conres, get you in touch with Aaron and his team. I know they've done a lot of things for a lot of different customers. Aaron, just thanks for being here today. Appreciate you kind of diving into this at the high level. And if anyone wants to dig in at a deeper level, I'm sure your team would love to chat with them.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Hey, have a great one, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.